What's up? Back at you with another video. Fresh off Rob Hersov and Dan Corder on the DJ's Boo Show. We are now jumping back to the other white guys, the FAFOS. We are jumping now to Ronaldo Gouws and Chris Wyatt, who have recently dropped videos where they've once again been admonishing South Africa, and I just want to catch up with them a little bit. Now, remember there was 2 weeks ago where I said that there will be protests in the United States in a number of weeks. And I said it so confidently that I even said I will quote myself on this, that there will be protests in the United States. This was when I was telling Renaldo Gouws that he's full of air. His confidence in Trump is placed on shaky ground. Here it is right here. You all know Trump is crazy, right? You all know Ronaldo is full of air, right? You all know he's just filling his pockets with stones, right? You all know Trump is getting ripped apart and there's probably going to be protests. I think I'll quote myself on this. There'll be protests in the next few weeks in the United States. You hear that? So now, guess what?
And tens of thousands of protesters have gathered across the United States and other parts of the world to demonstrate against U.S. President Donald Trump's policies. The hands-off rallies, as they're known, voiced opposition to President Trump's plans to downsize the U.S. government, reshape human rights, and his handling of economic issues. Marches also took place in Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, as well as Portugal. One of the biggest rallies was held in Washington, where Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin accused Mr. Trump and Tesla owner Elon Musk of trying to tear down the American Constitution.
I believe Donald Trump is trying to tear our country down. The only thing that makes sense is he is working on the behalf of Putin. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, the things that he's doing is not trying to make America better. He's ruining our infrastructure, like every department in our government. He's ruining, and he's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world. And Congress sits back and does nothing. And we have to stand up and take our country back.
It's now 2 weeks later since I said that there will be protests in the United States because of Trump and his madness, and there we are. There we really are. And let me also, while I'm here, remind you, as we're going to be looking at video of Colonel Chris Wyatt, to two people that he interviewed. One of them was Sama Sambit and the other one was Ike Kumalo. So here is Ike praising Donald Trump, who is now facing serious protests from the people in his country.
Donald Trump's he's keeping me quite busy.
Yeah. I love Trump, man. You know, when Trump left office during his first term, I said that the Americans, they're going to miss him. They're going to miss him because he was trying to save the country, you know, against the international forces, against the globalists. So he's my man. I love him.
Well, I got to tell you, Ike, I to be honest, the first time around, I was a Trump skeptic because I followed Trump his entire life, his, apprentice show, his businessman time. He was like pro-abortion at one stage in his life. But what I didn't understand about Trump is that Trump is a smart guy from a standpoint that when he was in a system, he understands how to work in that system. And he was in New York, which is a Democratic left-leaning city. And there's certain things he had to go along with. But his true character came out when he became president the first time. I voted for him in 2016, but he wasn't my candidate. I voted for him, not enthusiastically. In 2020, I was all in. I voted for Trump completely because I saw the man did what he said he was going to do. And this time around, no hesitation whatsoever.
You heard that? He said when Trump left in the first administration, people were gonna miss him. He came back. Now they quickly want him out. Wow, man. How fast time moves. How little we know about the world and what is to come tomorrow. And now, here is Sama Sambit saying that Trump saved South Africa from moments of eternal ruin.
So that's fascinating what you had to say. This video that you did that went viral on Donald Trump, what prompted that? And can you give kind of a synopsis of what the video was? Because not everybody saw the video.
So the basic summary of the entire video is me basically telling the audience on why Donald Trump saved South Africa from moments of eternal ruin, as I like to call it. South Africa has been falling into communism by the day, and every law-abiding citizen knows that. There's no job opportunities over here. The women are getting beaten, crime is increasing, and the government says, hey, instead of creating job opportunities and putting all these kids to rehab, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give them 350 rand a month, create more vacancies, buy all the massive companies like Eskom, Prasa, and South African Airways, enslave our people so that they have no one else to rely on, pardon my Greece, except us, the ANC, as well as the government of national unity.
You hear that? And now the US stock market is in free fall. Let's have a look at what is currently happening before we now listen to what these guys have to say towards South Africa and how South Africa should be following Trump, etc., etc. Like, this is so incredibly funny, bruh, to see Colonel Chris Wyatt not report on things in his country, bro. Like, to see Renaldo as well just take this direction of looking at South Africa and saying, you're a bad baby, you are not doing what daddy says over there. And then when you look back, daddy's just a complete flop, man. The baby ought not to even be listening to that rubbish over there. So the stock market has experienced a significant decline in response to President Donald Trump's recent tariff announcement. Here are the key impacts. The Dow Jones Industrial Average. The Dow has fallen by 2,231 points, that's 5.5%, as of April 4th, 2025, marking its largest consecutive losses since March 2020. It is now in correction territory, having dropped more than 10% from its December high. Now, the S&P 500 has declined by 5.97%, losing approximately $5.6 trillion in market capitalization over 2 days. It also entered correction territory with a drop exceeding 10% from its recent peak. The Nasdaq Composite, heavily weighed towards technology stocks, has plummeted by 5.82% and officially entered a bear market, falling over 20% from its December peak. Overall, the US stock market has lost around $6 trillion in value within just 2 days following the tariff announcement. This downturn is attributed to fears of a global trade war, potential recession risks, and retaliatory measures from other nations like China. So, we have a fool running the United States, and now let's listen to the minions who are encouraging us to follow him and do in our country what he is doing in his country, etc., etc. It's so funny. Let's get to Ronaldo Gouws and play him at 1.3x speed.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ronaldo here. So this video is going to focus on how the United States is making good on their promise that they want to implement sanctions against South Africa and against individuals in South Africa. They have released a document detailing a lot of things that prove that mainstream media clearly does not know what they're talking about. Remember how mainstream told you that it is AfriForum, it is Solidariteit, it is Ernst Roots, it is the alternative media that is giving the United States false information? Well, the document that was released clearly indicate that the United States actually have their own intelligence services. Surprise! This is something that mainstream media lied to you about. This is something that politicians lied to you about. Here is the clear evidence that mainstream media and all these commentators on social media that is anti the United States, anti AfriForum and Solidariteit, that they were lying to you.
And what is your track record, bruh? Is Trump a credible and capable president? What he is doing? Tell us, give us commentary so that we can have a record of who the hell you are and what you are saying. Who is Trump? You've been talking about South Africa and South Africa's laws, South Africa's presidents, South African politicians getting sanctioned by the United States. Trump. Who is Trump? Where's Trump right now? In Mar-a-Lago playing golf while the people rise against him, and you are here spinning the same thing the same way. How can you not change? How can you not look ashamed a little bit? Aren't you crying inside? AGOA's gone. The white people are crying. Aren't you?
I hope that you hold them accountable, because if you look at the evidence in this document, you will see that the United States knows a lot more than what South Africa and these commentators and mainstream media gave them credit for. So let's start with one of the false news outlets out there that proclaimed that AfriForum and Solidariteit was to blame. So here you can see News 24, the penny seems to have dropped finally, and it says US Congressman proposes legislation to sanction South Africa over its ties with Russia, China and Iran. Now, just the highlight here, it says, on Thursday, U.S. Congressman Ronnie Jackson introduced the U.S. South African Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025, which would mandate a full review on the bilateral relationship between the United States and South Africa. The legislation would also help to advance U.S. President Donald Trump's foreign policy agenda by giving him the tools necessary to impose sanctions on South African government officials who support America's adversaries. This is amid ructions between South Africa and its second largest trading partner. But now, in true News 24 fashion, they deal with the fact, and then immediately they try to discredit Jackson by saying the Office of Congressional Ethics just found there a substantial reason to believe that Rep. Ronnie Jackson converted campaign funds to personal use or his campaign spent funds that were not attributed to bona fide campaign or political purposes. So yeah, they are now trying to detract from the actual point, which is typical mainstream media for you. They report on the news accurately, and then suddenly they want to now throw stones at the person that proposed the bill. That is such a typical mainstream media thing, because hey, instead of showing how wrong they were, they would rather now want to put the attention on somebody else in their very own article. So this document that is available, I will share it with you now. And then what we can do is we can have a look at it. And I just highlighted some of the names. I'm not going to go into detail. I will share this document with you in the description below so that you can read it at your own time. I believe it's 15 pages. And it looks...
The United States is burning.
As follows. It says the 119th Congress, first session, to require a full review of the bilateral relationship between the United States and South Africa and identify South African government officials and ANC leaders eligible for the imposition of sanctions and for other purposes. So this was brought in the House of Representatives, and it is proposed as a bill, and if it's voted on, it will be an act. Now, if you look at the short title here, it says, this act may be cited as the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025. And here we go, the findings. Let's start. The African National Congress is mentioned. The South African government is mentioned on multiple occasions, as you can see here, the South African government. And here we go, the leaders of the ANC. So this includes South Africa's foreign ministry. This includes the ANC's national spokesperson, Malengi Bengu Motsiri. This includes President Cyril Ramaphosa. This includes Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor. This includes Pandor again and again. And the fact that the ANC hosted 3 members of Hamas in Pretoria. It also talks about Pandor again over here. So you can see Naledi Pandor is like hot in this discussion. And then what it does is it provides examples here. So it gives you quite detailed information as to what happened, why it happened, and why the United States has got a problem with it. So here, as an example, they talk about allowing a United States-sanctioned Russian cargo ship, the Lady R, to dock and transfer arms at a South African naval base in December. They also mention Operation Mossy 2, carried out jointly with the PRC and Russia. They also mention an oligarch, Victor Vexelberg, that donated close to $1 million to the ANC in 2022. And it just goes on and on. President Cyril Ramaphosa is mentioned again. President Jacob Zuma is mentioned again. Ibrahim Rasool is mentioned. And in essence, you can see that they know exactly what they're talking about. So the full review of the bilateral relationship is what they are looking at. And then obviously a report on sanctions for persons. So they have a list of senior South African government officials and ANC leaders that they are looking at sanctioning, as well as South Africa as a whole, based on our relationship with Iran, Russia, and China. So if you just look at this document, you can see that they have done their research. They give dates, they give times, they give interactions, they give things that were said by South Africans, by government officials, and it is damning. That is what I will tell you. So I will link this document below so that you can go and read it at your own time. But in a nutshell, what this means is that, guess what? The USA actually knows what they're talking about. They have actually done research, and this is a clear indication that...
Did Trump do his research before these tariffs? Did he do some research? And the mathematical formula, the calculation of the US trade deficit divided by another, is it the surplus of the other country or the deficit multiplied by 100 equals the numbers that were on that cardboard. What kind of grade 5 mathematics is Trump working with? And here you are showing us some 15 pages of nothing, really, from a nothing precedent.
Here's my take. Liberation Day is an apt name for Donald Trump's policy to impose massive new tariffs across the world. His view of the United States is of a victimized colony, taken advantage of by other countries that have robbed it of jobs, industries, and money. This week, when announcing his tariff plans, he said this:
"Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years.
Trump's acolytes like J.D. Vance and Howard Lutnick parrot this view, painting a picture of a hollowed-out country with empty factories, unemployed workers, and stagnant wages. The reality is the opposite, and it is only because it is the opposite, in other words, because of America's unrivaled economic power, that Trump can even attempt his tariff policy. It is U.S. economic heft that allows him to try to force the rest of the world to bend to his will. But Trump is using American power in such a capricious, destructive, dumb way that it will almost certainly result in a lose-lose for everyone. His tariffs have been calculated using a method closer to voodoo than economics. Among many mistakes, they are based solely on U.S. trade deficits with countries in goods, that America runs huge surpluses in services, exporting software services, movies, music, law, and banking to the world somehow doesn't count. More than 75% of the U.S. economy is apparently intangible fluff. Steel is the real deal. But while America is the world's dominant power, it is not so strong that it can act this irrationally. The world economy has grown of a size and scope that it will find ways around American protectionism, which is now among the world's most egregious.
What will it take for us to see Ronaldo Gouws become an anti-Trumper? Can Trump screw up enough to kill the right and to diminish whatever they stood for and whatever hope they still have in men like Trump? The Bible speaks about tribulation, about a time that is very tough. US debt is crazy. It's at levels that collapse empires. This is it. This has been seen before. Empires fall like this. The amount of debt there just doesn't disappear. You don't print more money. So what will happen to the United States? What will happen to these people locally like Renaldo who are clinging on? What will happen to Colonel Chris Wyatt himself, who said that this time he voted for Trump without any second thought? Is he in favor of what Trump is doing? Does he think that this is the right thing? Let's finish Ronaldo and quickly get into Colonel Chris there.
That the blame game that the government had, blaming AfriForum and Solidariteit, and mainstream media blaming Solidariteit and AfriForum, is clear bullshit. And the questions you have to ask is, how did mainstream media miss this? Did they miss it on purpose? Or was there funding involved in order for them to take away from the actual target and put it on organizations like AfriForum and Solidariteit? I mean, it's a real possibility if you look at the quality of journalism in South Africa, specifically with the narratives that are being driven by mainstream media outlets. So this report is damning because it gives a date-by-date, statement-by-statement report on what was said, by who, about what, and why this is in contravention of this agreement between South Africa and the United States. So, FAFO, you know that term? And if you don't know that term, Google it. FAFO. The FO part is happening right now. The find out part. And mainstream media is finding out. The ANC is finding out. Government officials are finding out that the United States know what they are talking about.
Trump and the people who voted for him are finding out the sad mistake that they made. When will you repent? Will you go on like a machine? Will we watch Ronaldo Gouws go down with Donald Trump? Will he get a FAFO tattoo on his chest and his forehead while that happens? FAFO, MAGA. Will the radicalism encounter sense and reason at some point.
And they are ready to act on it. So now you've got 30 days in order for them to assess and then come back with more information. It's going to be interesting times. This is now after South Africa was hit with a 30% tariff. This potentially means that AGOA is null and void, so AGOA falls away, and that benefit that we received there is completely collapsed. Thank you to the ANC government, of course. And where we are right now is that...
Dump it on the ANC. Like, I really feel sorry for you if Renaldo is your news. If you are not looking outside and seeing that Trump did this to Canada, their ally, their neighbor next door. So South Africans should feel ashamed and be rocked in their boots. Why? When we know that there's a madman with the steering wheel of the world in his hands.
The United States have acknowledged that there are players involved that has caused this, and they will be potentially sanctioned, but also South Africa as a whole because of the actions of these individuals. So as it stands right now, we don't really know if South Africa as a whole will be sanctioned, but from this document and the evidence in it is quite clear that there should be a lot of ANC cadres that should be worried because sanctions are coming for them very, very hard. And if South Africa is punished with sanctions because of these individuals, then you know who to blame for it. It's definitely not AfriForum. It's definitely not Solidarity. It's definitely not alternative media. It's not us. It is the ANC government. That is who to blame. And shame on you, mainstream media, for lying to the public out there and trying to create a different narrative, because you are also FAFOing what's going to happen. It is insane. It is absolutely pathetic. And thank God that this document came out to show how much the United States actually know and how little mainstream media knows, or whether they knew about it and decided to rather focus on something else, whether of funding, whether of donations coming to them, who knows? And the people who should hang their heads in shame is the African National Congress, our ANC government, and of course mainstream media for spreading false information when they knew better. Shame on you. And that's pretty much all I got to say. If you enjoy.
Well, now let's jump over then to Ronaldo Chris Wyatt to see, is what's currently happening on the ground reflected anywhere on his channel or in his recent news. Latest video says no sanctions yet. Trump revokes Sudan visas. Budget crisis. South Africa's FAFO. Let's jump into South Africa's FAFO right quick. He seems to be out and about in Pennsylvania. A cloudy day, and there looks to be some cherry blossoms or some blooming. Is it spring over there? Hey, some quick shameless self-promotion over here. If you love and enjoy this channel and you also happen to love dope gadgets, you can support my new baby, my new startup, my new retail venture, Gadget Plug. In case you've only ever known me as a YouTuber, you'll be glad to know that I'm also a wedding and documentary film producer, pro video editor, and all-round entrepreneur with a love for high-end gadgets like cinema cameras, gaming consoles, powerful GPUs, computers, and mobile phones. And my electronics store Gadget Plug is your new go-to place for the latest and greatest in tech. We're talking real gadgets, real quality, real quick, at the best prices in all of South Africa. To know more about this, head on over to my website imneo.co.za and check out my e-commerce store today. As we officially kick off business, Gadget Plug has stock right now of iPhone 16 Pro Max in 256 and 512 gig at 25,000 and 28,000 respectively. Simply press the green button at the bottom of my website if you want to inquire, and one of my friendly customer service agents will attend to you. Thank you very much for your support. And now back to the video.
Hey folks, welcome back. It's Friday, April 4th, 2025, and arguably this is South Africa's horrible day. It's been a very bad day for South Africa, buffeted by all kinds of actions, not the least of which include a bill being introduced by Troy Nehls of Texas that would complicate the refugee matter regarding South Africa and make it a matter of law specifically for white Afrikaners to come to America. Bad news for South Africa on that front. Then Ronnie Jackson, the former personal physician of President Trump during his first administration, now congressman from the 13th District of Texas, has relaunched the effort from February 6th of last year during the Biden administration to review South Africa-U.S. bilateral relationship with the aim of punishing South Africa. This time around,
Is that Ronnie Jackson? Rodney Jackson or Ronnie Jackson from what you just saw in the Ronaldo video?
The bill is much longer than I think it was 6 pages last year. Now it's 15 pages, including egregious offenses against the United States by South Africa and the ANC, against our national security interest, against our national interest. And it goes beyond that this time. This act also accuses South Africa's government, the ANC, of malfeasance, state capture, ineptitude, corruption. It's really damning what's coming out of this bill that's going before Congress and the House of Representatives. Now, the difference between last year and this year is that the Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, and the White House. So this bill might get amended, but it's a very real chance it could become public law. And it triggers several things, not the least of which is an effort by Ronnie Jackson to sanction ANC leaders. This is the first time we've publicly heard something like this. I and other analysts have been pointing out the danger, the hazard that South African political leaders could be sanctioned for their behavior, particularly the way they've been abusing America. But now to see it publicly listed in a potential law from a member of the House of Representatives, when the party that's pushing it controls both houses, the bicameral legislature and the White House, which means it could become law, quite shocking. In addition to this, the High Consul from Los Angeles for South Africa has been booted out of the country for her conduct, apparently, supposedly tied to CARE, the Islamic pro-Islamist group here in America, Council on American Islamic Relations, who gave her an award recently in her statements against Israel and anti-Semitic comments. Apparently that's the reason she was booted out of the country. So yet another own goal by South Africa's diplomatic corps. The ambassador Ibrahim Rasool was kicked out after calling President Trump the leader of a global white supremacist movement with no evidence whatsoever, violating diplomatic norms, and then calling America racist, calling Americans racist. This coming from someone who has a contorted view of what Palestinians are and what's going on there. So Rasool was kicked out a few weeks ago. Now the High Counselor in Los Angeles has been kicked out. The military attaché, his tour ended, he left, so the press jumped on that and said, oh, he's been kicked.
Colonel Chris Wyatt, what is happening across the world with the protests against Trump? There are people protesting in Australia, in France, all across America, in Canada, in the UK. What's happening? Do you know? Have you seen any of it?
Out too. When he wasn't kicked out, he simply ended his tour. But things are not looking good. And as if the Afrikaner Act for refugee status, a bill, as if the review of the bilateral relationship by Ronnie Jackson, and as if the High Consul being kicked out wasn't enough, we also have allegations coming from a British non-government organization that's been investigating South Africa's involvement in money laundering, and they're claiming that South Africa's DIRCO, Director of International Relations and Cooperation, knew about the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attack by Hamas before it happened. The claim, which is not substantiated by any evidence that I've seen yet, but the claim says that South Africa's DIRCO officials knew that it was happening and coordinated with Hamas so that they get a favorable media blitz, a campaign to counter Israel's expected. So what the heck? Seriously? This is a day of epically bad proportions. I'm not sure what the Rand is doing today, but if it's holding its own, I'd be shocked. This is really, really bad news. And all of this comes a day after South Africa gets 30% tariff slapped on it for its unfair trade practices with the United States, and basically AGOA is evaporated and eviscerated overnight.
Unfair trade practices. As Trump stood there saying, America has been getting raped by everybody. We are one of those.
So essentially, South Africa's lost AGOA. They're instantly less competitive than other countries that ship cars in America because South Africa won't get a 25% tariff on their cars. They get a 30% tariff, whereas the European manufacturers have a 25% tariff, making them instantly more competitive than South Africa.
Let me ask, those who are followers of Chris Wyatt, those who live in this country but hate this country so much, those who have been rooting for US aid to go, for AGOA to go, I don't know, seems like y'all haven't really been begging for AGOA to go. Seems like many have been sitting with fingers crossed because those in the automotive industry, and these would be multinational companies like the VWs, right? They simply had incentive to manufacture in South Africa and then ship to the United States. That was just switched on for trade to pass this way. Trump has just switched that off now. Are these good news for Afrikaners? Are these good news for South African white people, for Cape Townians, for the Renaldo hosts? Are you happy? Are you glad to be looking at Colonel Chris Wyatt? You follow him, you like his content, you like how he talks about this country. Are you happy about the news that he's bringing you? This horrible, hectic relationship that you have with your abuser, somebody who is not standing up for you, somebody who is not trying to make things work quickly, who's just in front of a camera, constantly announcing, somebody who is supposed to be petitioning for you as Afrikaners to go to the United States, to a safe country. Clearly, you're being misled. That country over there is hell. If you were arriving, if some are. I haven't seen Colonel Chris Wyatt report on even the first family to get on a flight to have approval. We don't know about them. Maybe he's going to interview them. But whoever gets approved first, you need to know that you're going to a United States that is more expensive than ever before. The people there are crying. And You're getting invited. Come this way. The president of this country knows some things about some things. He knows about the economy. He knows about tariffs. How do you feel this moment? How do you unpack your feelings? Are you in love with Colonel Chris Wyatt? Has he helped you? Has he helped inform you? Has he helped make you prepared for what has now come? If he had just told you that, look forward to sanctions, South Africa, there's no way, there's no return, maybe some of you would have pulled your money from the stock market. But he's just moving day by day, information as it comes. He's not able to anticipate or guide in any way. He's probably scratching his head as well, wondering, like, what kind of person is Trump going to make me look like? After this 5 years, what will I look like as a person, as this MAGA leader continues to go in that direction that he's going? Let's just finish Colonel Chris Wyatt over there. It's really tough.
Cars, they get a 30% tariff, whereas the European manufacturers have a 25% tariff, making them instantly more competitive than South Africa, whose cars come on a route that's less traveled and more expensive. So add to that higher tariffs, and the advantage you had of no tariffs on those cars is completely gone. South Africa's economy is likely going to a tailspin as a consequence of all the actions taking place this week. It's not a good situation, and this was all preventable. Sir Ramaphosa, are you listening? Why in the world is Ronnie Lamola the Minister of Foreign Affairs, let alone
this was preventable?
A member of your cabinet, or even a member of parliament? This is all well beyond the man's capacity. So in response to all these actions by Ronnie Jackson, by Troy Nels, all these things happening now, what does Ronnie Lamola do? He strikes back and says that Ronnie Jackson's bill is full of lies and misstatements and deceptions. Well, that's simply not true. It's a matter of public record. Most of the things that are included in that report that South Africa's done against U.S. national interests. But the key feature of this bill is that South Africa claims to be non-aligned, when in fact it is aligned, very much so, with malevolent actors, including Hamas, Iran, Russia, and China. They deny it, but their actions speak louder than words. The foolhardy behavior of the South African government is just beyond conception here. Why in the world would you antagonize your second largest trading partner, your most beneficial trading partner, a partner that has 600 companies operating in your country, providing hundreds of thousands of jobs, a country that gives you duty-free access to its marketplace and doesn't even demand anything in return? Why in the world would you act in this fashion, unless you want to play the role of martyr? It's time for Ronnie Lamola to find something in the private sector for once in his life. He's clearly not up to the task of what he's doing, and it's harming South Africa's national interests, it's harming the ANC's reputation, and it's going to harm regular South Africans, everyday South Africans, who will lose jobs and suffer as a consequence of what's going on there. Your foreign affairs are a total disaster, South Africa, poorly handled by Naledi Pandor and now by Ronnie Lamola. You need to find an adult with a gravitas to lead that department and nominate and appoint ambassadors.
We need an adult to lead and run the United States. There are protests on your street. Come be human. You've been a god. Arriving, standing in the clouds, delivering messages from the United States, telling us what we ought to do from a trumpet. Quang, quang. Just come down. Let's give you a hug. It's not looking good for your country over there. You're gonna need a bit more of this YouTube money to fill in for the inflation and the taxes that you personally are going to be paying for these imported goods. How sad to slap taxes on macadamia nuts and things that you are not capable of producing over there. On the shelf, they'll be more expensive. Who's supposed to cry? South Africans? Shouldn't we be comforting you?
Who now to behave as ambassador. You keep your private personal opinions about someone to yourself when you work in the diplomatic field. You don't run your mouth like Ibrahim Rasool did, unless you were told to do it. If that was the case, it explains an awful lot about the relationship with South Africa. Well, today's horrible day for South Africa, April 4th, 2025. Things have gone sideways very quickly. What say you, South Africa? What say you, world? Things are not looking pretty for the African National Congress. Oh, it'll be a tough weekend. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, Colonel Chris Wyatt. We'll see you next time. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see what is happening out there? Keep your eyes on it. Stay on this channel. I'll be seeing you next time.